Eric, can I pass you? Thank you so much.
But he has already said COVID. I will say that I think for the immune system.
Yes, Baruch Hashem. It's very pleasant. Yes, very pleasant. We're very excited, Baruch Hashem. We want to say a shikoyach to all the Ponim Chadoshes. It's very sweet. And we know that the Frierdiker Rebbe had a big koch, not only that there should be Tefillah b'tzibur, but should be Limud HaTorah b'tzibur. And that the tzibur adds a certain koyach to the Limud HaTorah. So in a certain sense, this is the first week in the winter, after already the excitement of Chodesh Tishrei, so it's exciting. And Befrat, we had last week, but now is, and Befrat that it's connected to a Suda Seidoah, because the Gemara says about Rishon ben Yochai, when his life was saved, that he said, Iki midi l'tikuni b'masa. Is there something we can do good? So what better thing could there be than serving Yidden bagels and breakfast and Melanin Torah, Perdish Hashem Tamima on a Sunday morning? I don't know of a better thing than Iki l'tikuni l'masa. That should be a schus mitzvah Hashem for our dear Baal Koida, who reads B'Sofa Berura B'Neima Kedosha, L'Arichus Yomim V'Shonim Toives Ad Bias Girl Tzedek Ad V'Ad B'Chlal.
Which Mamar is it?
Which Mamar? The Shemechai in Shabbos, he said that when he was life was saved, say from here we learned that when your life was in danger and got saved, you should do something. You should do something l'tikuna, something a tikkun. So this is a good tikkun. Breakfast, there's no better thing. Still tikkun. Okay, so 3 shilas I want to deal with today. The first shaila is a little bit of a loaded shaila, so it's really sort of a little bit. It coincides Hashgacha Pratis to what the Masechta we started this year. So someone sent me a thing that there was a thing that came out recently by Choshev in Brooklyn that there is a new story that there is an Eidav in Brown Brooklyn. Most of Brooklyn is covered in the Eidav. If you really need to know, I didn't publish that. If it's on again next time, I'll give a follow up. I'll print out also the map. No, you could ask anyone here in Shul. Just like I got it forwarded this email, you can get it forward. One line in the email that concerns me is that this Eidav is made with the endorsement of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So that's one of the nakudas that I'd like to focus on. So we're not going to cover everything, but I want to cover Torah Shlema about the Eidav in Brooklyn. Who are we to say that this was already an old discussion? We know that Mamish Godel Ador in America, the Moshe Feinstein Befreidish had a problem with the Eidav made in Brooklyn. We don't know of any changes in on the ground that happened from then till now. I once bought a sefer about Al Mitzvah's Eidav. So last night I took it off my shelf. I said, whatever. Let's see the argument for the other way. So a whole sefer. But it's interesting. Shabbos Agodel Drosha Shnaz Tovshin Samach from Rav Katz said the Heli Ro. So he says like this. Yeah. So he says, look. He says, how are you? He says, the people they're making everything in life. Look. The Egen Ahor and Nazgala Beliitim. A shekel they put on, Rahman al Islam. Zoken is durchzendige Zoken. In the, I guess, I don't know. In the house, there is. Oh, I don't know which cats it is.
No, from Bell.
The radio and video, Vein Tzarech Lema Internet, Avia, Voice Atum Rahman al Islam, they have. And Al Kula Oil Al Kulana Meret, perfect English. So he said that I said, by the way. But that's perfect English. And when it comes to mitzvah Eidev, which is such a big mitzvah, that to have an Eidev, these people are being machmer. Okay. And then he says, that woman never has to be locked in the house a whole Shabbos, right in the summer, and now the Motzah Shabbos, the husband has to pay for her pain betavim v'takilin. They were locked up in the house all Shabbos, and davz lufter in the nerven. So Motzah Shabbos, they have to take them out miyadei lahechem, and the whole week midaf optzon. So B'meila, a whole week he has to pay back his wife for the pain she had on Shabbos. So you shouldn't take lightly the mitzvah of building an Eidev. Okay.
Robert Bar Parker says that the second that you tell my wife that she can't carry, I'll ask her. That's on his mind. Right.
Do you know the Rav who approved this new book on Eric?
When you'll get I'll glean it after the shiur. I'll forward it to you. You'll see everything.
I saw it, but
Okay.
I'm saying
I don't know him personally.
You don't know.
He's a very chashuv. And I use all his svarim. It's very nice.
And there's nothing like living in a community with an area.
Yeah, and he says that the Rebbe. Yeah, so it's a delicate thing, and I'll explain in a minute that it's being used. Maybe from then till now, a week ago, I got this email from Betche. Okay, let's read a little bit in the Gemara. Talk the Gemara, Masechah Shabbos. Like I said, Hashgacha Pratis, we started now learning Masechah Shabbos, so this is really a good thing to. And Hashgacha Pratis, it's like, to me, it's just an opportunity. Every shaila that comes my way is just an opportunity to explore another sugya. It's not chas v'shalom politics to me in the least bit. It's just an opportunity to learn Divrei Elokim Chaim. The Gemara Shabbos is the Gemara we just started learning, so it's another opportunity to get into the sugya that we're getting into on our weekly shiurim. Ton Rabbanim, Dal the Rishuyas l'Shabbos. There's 4 Rishuyas for Shabbos. Ezer Rishus Harabim. What's a Rishus Harabim? Sratya uflatya gedoyla, a plaza and a road. Umavos amufoloshim. Sratya is like a marketplace. A flatya is like a highway. Umavos is like these long streets that have houses on both sides or chatzedus on both sides. Rishus Harabim Gemara. The Gemara in the Amud Bey says, Midbar. How come the Gemara doesn't mention the Midbar? The Tanya we learned on a Braisa, Ezer Rishus Harabim. What is the Rishus Harabim? Sratya, Flatya, Gedoyla, Mavosam, Faloshim, Midbar. Amarabai, Eloi Kasha, Kambas Manch Yisrael, B'Shroim, Midbar, Kambas Manazet. Ashik says, when the Eden were in the Midbar, there was 600,000 people there, so it was Rishus Harabim. But Bizmanazet, a Midbar is not a Rishus Harabim, it's a Carmelis, which is a step down from Rishus Harabim. Carmelis is that it's not really Rishus Harabim, but Chachamim were goizer that you should treat it like a Rishus Harabim. The Gemara says in Erevin, V'omer Rabba b'Bachonam b'Yerchim, Yerushalayim Elamala l'Altzasen Analos B'Layla Chayrovin Le'em Mishum Rishus Harabim. That Yerushalayim, if you wouldn't lock the gates by night, because Yerushalayim they used to lock the gates by night for protection. Had they not done that, then it would be considered Rishus Harabim. V'omer Ula Hani Abuli de Mechuzah. These roads in Mechuzah, which is the Muvos of Mechuzah, if they wouldn't be locking the doors by night, okay, I want two very important points, very, very important points about the Rishus Harabim. One of lesser of importance, and the second will be of more importance. Number one, Chacham Tzvi brings a sheet of the Rashba. The Rashba says that Saratya, loy moyer loy dlosses and nolas balaylas. It won't even help to have locked doors by night. And he's behind. There's no tikkun to make it a Saratya. Or what's a Saratya is a big basilica, a big marketplace, a place where people come together, a rabbin come together. Yeah, sure. Right. So he says that the mavos, which are the roads, so it comes out from the Rash, but sounds like this: that if it's roads. So when you put glosses, so people, it's what makes it a Rishus Harabim, the flow. The flow makes it a Rishus Harabim. So when you put a delos, there's no flow. So there's no flow, it's always a Rishus Harabim. But a Saratya, what makes it a Rishus Harabim? The fact that there's a lot of people there. So what does it help that there should be doors. Some person say no, that even the Sratya, if you're going to make doors getting into the Sratya, and it's not easily accessible for people to go in, then it would become a Rishus HaYochid. Tzemach Tzedek has a big pilpul in the beginning of Masechah Shabbos about this Rajba. This Rajba doesn't be so much accepted lahalocha, but Tzemach Tzedek thinks that even a Rishus HaRabim that's not straight, seems to be that the Rishus HaRabim needs to be straight. But if it's a real Rishus HaRabim, even if it's windy, but if you take the Rajba in account, that a Sratya won't help to build losses, so there is a problem. Okay, let's put this on hold.
What about a toll?
Huh?
What about a toll?
Oh, we'll get this in a second. We'll talk about this now. So, no, we'll talk about it a second because that's important to first know the next piece, which is the Gemara never ever mentions that you need to have 600,000 people walking the place. Gemara says, a place where a lot of people congregate, or a road where a lot of people go from one city to the other city. And the Gemara gives also dimensions for it, which is Tezainama al Tezainama. But the Gemara never, ever says that you need 600,000 people. Now, where do we get that? Because Tosfos says it. Rashi explains that the Gemara asks, why in one Braisa do we mention the Midbar as Rishus HaRabim, the other Braisa doesn't mention it? And the Gemara says, Kam bezman she'Yisrael b'shroim b'midbar, Kam bezman she'en Yisrael shroim b'midbar. And Rashi says the Pshat is when you need more b'midbar, Rishus HaRabim, what's so special when the Yidden are in the Midbar? So Tosfos adds to Rashi, because there was 600,000 people. So there's never a Gemara that says it. In fact, the Rambam learns it the opposite. Not everyone learns it mamish the opposite. You don't have to learn like Tosfos even if you learn like Rashi. But just the opposite. Let's read it inside. The Rambam says, Arbe Rishus l'Shabbos, Rishus HaYochid, Rishus HaRabim, Karmel L'Somokim P'tur, Ezu Rishus HaRabim, Midboris, obviously emphasis is from my computer, not in the words of the Rambam, Midboris, Vayoris, Ushvokim, Udrachim HaMufoloshim. So he Befedish says that a Midbor is a Rishus HaRabim.
No people?
He didn't say, he didn't stipulate.
He doesn't mention,
He didn't mention
people
anything.
at all.
Ubelvad she'roicha v'derech sheish esri yama. Condition number one is there should be the derech should be as wide as 16 amma. And the condition number two, v'lo tikra, there shouldn't be a ceiling on it. The Kesef Mishnah immediately writes, Kosev Magid Mishnah, correct, I don't understand. Mash Kosev Rabbeinu Med Boris Vayoretz B'chlal Rishus HaRabim Hi, David Matmiya says it's a pella. I don't begin to understand. Well, I don't understand. The Gemara says that Ad Bezman Yisrael Shmuim B'Midbar. So, and it sounds like the Gemara is saying when Yidden were in the Midbar, it was a Rishus HaRabim. But Bezman Hazeh, Midbar is not a Rishus HaRabim. Kosev Rabbi Avram B'noi Shel Rambam. Sheyesh Meforshim, the opposite than Rashi. Bezman Yisrael Chayim B'Midbar. V'hoy Machaneim Sedurim. Boy Hoy Lagaben K'may Bikul Soda. Umay the Domelahu. It was not a Rishus HaRabim. It was not a Rishus HaRabim. You couldn't just walk and go anywhere. People had tents. There were fences. You couldn't just go from here to there. You couldn't just walk where you want. So it was like a Bikan Asada, which is not a Rishus HaRabim. It's a step down. The Rabbanim will go a Carmel, but it's not a Rishus HaRabim. But man and Yisrael Dorim, but he'll call me Sheyirtza Hilach Ba'Iv B'Toich Rishus HaRabim. The time of the Mistaberu, Mamish on its head, the other way around. That when the Gemara says it makes a difference if the Yidden were the Midbar, not the Midbar. When the Yidden were the Midbar, was not a Rishus HaRabim. It was not a Rishus HaRabim. Some Sefer says, wait a minute. There's three places we know B'chlal the idea of carrying a Shabbos. And the chief place that all the Rishonim bring is by Aviru Koil B'Machna. The Moshe Rabbeinu said that they shouldn't bring any more Nedavos. They shouldn't bring Veikola Homiyavi. And why did the Moshe Rabbeinu say? So the Gemara learns because that it was Shabbos and they shouldn't carry from Rishus HaYochid to Rishus HaRabim. So we see Midbar is a Rishus HaRabim. So some Sefer has a brilliant answer. Count the answer the some Sefer. Very good. That some Sefer gives a brilliant answer. That was this answer. That the answer is he says that the Machnes were not B'Shana Rishon. The Nitvus HaMishpan was B'Shana Rishon. So B'Shana Rishon, there was a Rishus HaRabim. But after they built a Machnes, it was not a Rishus HaRabim. No, it's the Mechiach from the Psukim, that the Machnas came later. Well, they camped around, but the whole idea of the Machnas and this was a mitzvah from the Torah, the Golem and the Machnas came later. The Mechiach from Pshutim Shuksulim, Rishon Hashniya. Leave it for Chassam Sefer. Brilliant answer. So,
I was gonna say that it's not an issue of Midbar, but that there were three Machanas. There's the Machane Yisrael, the Machane Leviah, the Machane Kahuna. So they go from one Rishus to another, wherever it is, would be an Isser, but a Midbar Bechlal is a different issue.
yeah, you could answer that too. You could say that after the Machanas, within that teretz itself, that after the Machanas Shechina always stayed at Rishus Harabim. The other ones turned into Carmelites. And you could say that in the Pshat and the Babanom. That before there was Machanas, the whole Midbar, or Bisman said the whole Midbar is a Rishus Harabim. Okay. Be it as it may, the upshot here is a second upshot from this whole thing is you see clearly that not all the Rishonim bought into this notion that what's the defining factor of Rishus Harabim is 600,000 people. So who cares? Oh, there's a very big difference.
2 billion people.
There was more, right?
So
right.
I understand about the
One second. Let's get to the few million in a second.
Okay.
So we see that there is among the Rishonim a divide. The Gemara never said that you need to have 600,000 people. The Gemara made a chiluk. So you could learn that when Yidmor in the Midway was a Rishus Harabim, and within that itself, you could say what makes it a Rishus Harabim. You could say, but there's a lot of people out there. Then you could say like Tosfos, because 600,000 people are there. And you could disagree with Tosfos. Or you can learn the Gemara just the opposite. So the Gemara never said 600,000 people.
And even the 600,000 could be that there were more than what is needed, but a smaller amount would have been the same thing.
That's what he was talking about. So I want to talk about this in a second. But why is it so critical to know what's a Rishus Harabim? Because the Gemara says that you need to have, for a Rishus Harabim, you need to have Dalsasan and Olas Balailas. You can't just make a Stam and Eruv. It has to be that there's 4 walls, not only 4 walls, it has to be that the gates are locked by night. I remember, so it was 20 years ago, more. It's like 25. I was once by Psashir talking about an Eruv. The guy was talking about maybe somewhere in New Jersey, I don't remember. They had a problem that there is through the city gate to Moiradika Highway. And we'll talk in a minute about the highway, if it's a Rishus Harabim or not. Because there are those places that say, that even in a highway in a day you might have 600,000 people, but because they're in a car and every car is Cheluk Rishus Liatzmoi, so that's not called 600,000 people. There's a big shaklavatalia about this. So that's the problem. It's and there's a tshuva from the Masham, who talks about the train tracks. And he says but the train is carrying so many people, and during the day, so many people. So you have 600,000 people going on this road. So later Acharonim said, you see from the Masham was not, as we say in Yiddish, tzikratz, from the fact that these people were sitting in cars and not walking on their feet. So there's a whole discussion about the fact that there's cars driving through. So now this Erev, again, remember where it was, so they had this problem. So at middle of the night, one night when there was no cars, so a couple of guys had a project, and they had a tarp and a tarp, and they made a gate, and for 10 seconds they had a tarp that was high 10 tvachim, and that was held from one side of the highway to the other side of the highway.
The wind doesn't bother like
I don't know. They held it tight. They tightened it.
They do it at night
for 10 seconds, and there was no Dalsasan and Olas Balayla. There is a tshuva in the by the Moshe Feinstein, because Olav Shalom, the Mishnah Halachas, Rav Menashe Klein said that all the roads today are not Rishus Harabim. Why? The Gemara has a concept of Nechet Tashmishe, like Tzidr Rishus Harabim, where it's very difficult to get. There's all kinds of beams and there's poles, because in the side they used to have poles so you could tie up your horse, your camel, your donkey, your bags of chickens or whatever. So Tzidr Rishus Harabim is not Nechet Tashmishe. That's not a Rishus Harabim. He said there's a red light. It's not Nechet Tashmishe. And in a highway, there is also tolls. And those days, not like now where there's pictures, they have to stop. So without even much pilpul, the Moshe thought that the Moshe Feinstein thought that this was a Purim Torah. He didn't think that this was a serious loy nechet tashmishe.
How about the Ocean Parkway? More than 1,000 people on Shabbos walk.
Is the 600,000 cumulative or a constant?
So this is also a question. Does 600,000 people means in the city, and they potentially could walk on the road? Or 600,000 people means that 600,000 people are walking on the road? Or that 600,000 people have to walk on every point of the road?
Because in the midbar, it was a constant except of 600,000.
Now depends depends what. There's three ways of learning it in the midbar.
Ocean Parkway doesn't have 600,000
Right.
people.
So there's a big discussion about this, and it depends really. It would go to the three ways we're learning it. If you're learning it that the Eden shouldn't bring the Nadavis, so it's hard to imagine that all the Eden came at the same time to give the Nadavis. If you're going to learn it from the roads that they walked in the Midbar, and the Levim were taking on and off Kroshim onto the Agolos, so you could say yes that there was 600,000 people, and on that day, there's no reason to think that the Machne Yisrael took them more than a day to walk. To walk. I mean, they were walking. So it really depends how you're learning the din of Rishus Harabim. But there are those that learn that you need to have 600,000 people walking. And the thing is that in a lot of places in Brooklyn, we almost have that there are places that there's 600,000 people walking, and for sure that there's 600,000 cars. So now let's read inside Shulchan Aruch.
The borders of Brooklyn up to the water? Okay. Brooklyn is an island.
We'll talk about that in a second.
Another thing, the women and the children, the women also gave to the Mishkan. So that means that it was not 600,000. We're talking about 2 or 3 million people.
Right. So there's a tshuva in the Gris Moshe. He says he thinks that a city that needs to be a Rishus Harabim, 3 million people have to live there, and that's his svara. He says, why do we learn 600,000? Maybe there were more. They had women, children. They're shloft sich da and they're chropt sich da. This guy's here.
That has nothing to do with the city.
That when you have a city, 3 million people, so potentially on the roads you have 600,000.
They only have 2 million people, not 3 million people, in terms of the population.
No, everybody's counted. They can be racist. Everybody's people.
I didn't mean that at all. I meant the population of
Brooklyn does not have a population of 3 million.
When Ramosha was alive, for years it only had 2 million, and already he said it was a problem. So if we're saying 3 million is the standard, then it's a question to me.
Let's read in the Shulchan Aruch. He was against it.
He said that his words were appeared to him.
Yeah, he was against the Hated, very big. Let's read in the Alter Shulchan Aruch. He was also against. So again, let's boil it down. What our question here is: in order to build an Eidav, you want to not have a Rishus Harabim Deiraisa. As soon as you have a Rishus Harabim Deiraisa, you need to build walls, and you need to have gates that lock up by night. We're trying to figure out if Brooklyn is a Rishus Harabim Deiraisa or not a Rishus Harabim Deiraisa.
2.57 million people, though.
Oh, you just Google.
2.57.
So that's less than 3 million.
That's not including illegal. Illegal.
To have more, so there's more.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe
So there you go. So I thank you for your
Shkoyach.
So the question's still on the table then.
The Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Siman Shimon Hey writes like this: Eizer Rishus Harabim, Rechoybet Zishvakim, Rechom Tezayin Al Tezayin Hamash. Shekein Eidoichava Haderech B'Machne Levim Shebemidbar. Hu she'einem Mekurim ve'ein lem. By the way, I just want to go back to a cute thing. The Rashba said that if it's a marketplace that has 600,000 people, even if the city's gates are locked by night, it's not even going to help. Chachamsa brings it. Some pilpul's in him. If there's a marketplace, if there's one plaza in the city that has 600,000 people, a stadium, a plaza, something, obviously something that doesn't have a roof over it, so then it's not going to help. Let me take out the word stadium because stadium might have walls over it, so around it. So if there's any space that he calls, which is a saratya,
American dream.
so because that has a roof, it's walls. So that won't even help that the city has walls and it gets locked by night. And so Tzedek says, like some Tzedek has, and So Tzedek says there's a medrash in Eicha that when Yerushalayim was destroyed, with it was destroyed 20 seratios.
Wow.
So and Yerushalayim, the Gemara says, "Emolam al sending all this balayla." So he says, "Tzarichim."
He's right. The some of the carriage is fine.
Yeah. So he says, but he doesn't slug up Rashba. The Rashba. He says Tzarichim, and even uses the Rashba a little bit lechumra. But I was thinking just a funny thing. If you go today, for example, Yerushalayim, where there is the Tzemach Tzedek Shul, so that they show you that place, and depends if you're standing on one side or the other, on the right or on your left, you look down and you see what they call the Cardo, which is a big Seratia. Seratia Gedol. Huh?
Yeah,
In the old city.
The old city.
16 hours.
Jewish quarter.
Huh?
No more than 16 hours. It doesn't look like so wide.
16. And also what the excavation of it is.
The beams, because
Oh.
on the side of the beams was a yochido.
Oh. First of all, it seems like it was Makuda. The Befedish seems like it was Makuda. Those beams were holding what? It seems that those was Makuda.
It was built after the Churban.
Could be in the side.
I'm not
of
sure if it was
Makuda.
built after the Churban, before the Churban.
The Romans governed it.
Could be
They
on the
governed
side.
it, and it was built in the Roman style. But I think it was built.
By the Churban, the stones came over.
I think you have to look again. You can look it up now. The Cardo. You can flag it up at Google. When was the Cardo built? Huh? So the Cardo, for example, is one Seratia of 20. The Medrash says it was 20, but the Cardo was a Seratia. Now, if the Seratios, 20 marketplaces or 20 places where
Mixed together.
a lot of people gathered, the Medrash says. So
Even though the outer walls of this monastery would create a natural.
again, the question Tzemach Tzedek asked is that the Medrash says that there was 20 Seratios in Yerushalayim, and still we say that Yerushalayim was a Rishon Yochid because the gates are locked by night. But the Rashba says that it's not going to help that the gates are locked by night of a city.
This is the place I was thinking.
The Cardo, when was it built? Does it say when it was built? Because the Cardo had a roof over it. So that would have answered the Shaila that Tzemach Tzedek has of the Rashba. Well, there's no way for Tzemach Tzedek to know if the Satios had or didn't have a roof.
6th century.
Oh, no. So then the Cardo, it was built after the Churban.
600 years
Okay.
after the Churban.
But it's Shaykh that the Satios, that when Yerushalayim, it was a style of those days, and the Romans, that they built Satios, Gedolos, that had that were Makuda, that have a roof over them. Anyway.
I have a different question.
Well, no, could you hold it for a second? I just want to read the words of the Alter Rebbe.
Sure.
Shulchan Aruch Siman Shimon Hey Sif Yudal. Ezer Rishus Arab Menachem V'Sus Shrokim Menachem Tezayin Amas Al Tezayin Amas. Shkena Yorech V'Derech V'Machim Levim Sheben Midvu Shenim Makurim Vein Lem Chayma. Solve it. If there is no wall, there's no roof over it, so we say that that's a Rishus Arabim because the Alter Rebbe accepts the main reason is because of the road that the Levium were carrying the stuff from the base of Mikdash. If the road, even if there's a gate, but the road is straight, and there is a gate on one end and a gate on the other, and it is a straight line, skip the brackets. Bush ain't losses and knowledge balayla. Commotion is born b'simen shin samach dal. V'chein derachim shever meir leir l'chavim tezayim v'chein b'votz v'chein tezayinamis v'faloshim v'chein l'chein. That the same thing, roads from city to city, and in the city, if there's roads that are tezayinamis, and they're open to other roads straight. In other words, there's a street that has 600,000 people or whatever. The street that's a Rishus Harabim, but other streets that are open to it in a straight line. That if you don't have 600,000 people going there every day, Kedigle Midbar, Einoi Rishus Harabim, Elo Carmelis. Valpidi Vreyem, Nispashat Haminig B'Medinat Eilo Lohokal V'Loimish Eino Noachshav Rishus Harabim Gemurim and Limchas B'Yodam. Sheyesh lahem al mishis moicha b'chol yira shemayim yachmer la'atzma shkein das gedoyle rishonim v'tayim nemukim imam shaloi nisker shishim ribu b'gemara. These are the words of the Alter Rebbe. One more sif that's important over here, one more screw. The Alter Rebbe says, Simashin samach dalet, afa pishet tzuras ha-pesach, hikim achitze gemura, v'imasa tzuras ha-pesach gabi dalet kundeisa. He made a Tzuras HaPesach. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's open from. He just made 4 Tzuras HaPesach. Rishus HaYochid Gemore Hi Min HaTorah Filos came back to Rishus HaRabim Gemore Commission is board some Shin Sama Bet Afa became a different open in Tzuras HaPesach Moyilo Moyelos Rishus HaRabim Gemore Im Nishlo Mokolat Moy Tanoi Rishus HaRabim Elo Habola Hachshir Rishus HaRabim Lahater Bo until the end of brackets is a Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe. Elo Habola Hachshir Rishus HaRabim. The Alter Rebbe is being machadish that in his mind, the fact that you need to have walls and the losses nollas belayla was only din derabbanan. Really, minat Torah. Had you had that sort of pesach from all 4 sides of a real Rishus HaRabim, that would have been sufficient. But the rabbanon are the ones that said that you need to have the losses and nollas belayla. Ela abola hashir Rishus HaRabim la'ater ba hatiltal tzorich lasses loidelos mekam v'delos mekam v'ushin nollas belayla v'shenilas adlosas oisai kechotzer. After Sharabim Marvin the school, Adarashe is bored. But some Shin Tzadik Beis they make a 8 of Chatzeris for that place. Shemim said Tzrichim Shem Tikim v'Yishemrim. She'ain Sarashin in all those balala. You don't have to be Paul Mamish lock the gates by night. Rakshi Ruiz the last 3 lines here. Rakshi Ruiz Lino they have to be possible that you theoretically can lock them. Shimush God's ba'of from Mafana Oisam Matakna Ruiz Lino. And that's good enough. You don't have to mamish lock the gates. It has to be gates that if you wanted to close them, you could close them, like the gate you have today in front of the tunnel. What's it called? The Kerry tunnel. They're going from Brooklyn to Manhattan, so there's a gate. After the flood, they made a gate. If potentially they can close it. Do they close it? No, they don't. If there'll be a flood, they'll close it.
And even could ask the government to put doors that they don't close. Just to
if they put gesundheit wie schlagen das Wort schöne aber pische ich das Wort achroine kvar nas babs zum shimem hey shemem shach shov ein lo nur Rishus HaRabim gemude. So to summarize, there's a kul and a chumra in the words of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe is saying that the only way you're going to make a Rishus HaRabim, a real Rishus HaRabim, into a place that has an eruv, and then you can make mechitzas, and then you can make an 8 of chatzeris there, is if you have a gate and and you have to lock the things by night, and maybe you could be make like the shita that you don't have to lock the gates by night. But that's if there's not a real Rishus HaRabim. But if it's a real Rishus HaRabim, you have to lock the gates by night. Okay, so.
Now, well, I never understood this whole thing about the gates being locked at night, because if the place is mukafnefit so. So who cares whether or not and it's for me that the opening is not too wide. So it's
what does it help? So I think that's what I said before.
Especially it has to be locked at night. Now, who cares about it at night? Because people not coming anyway.
Right.
The whole thing at night is to expand itself.
So that's why I said before. That's why the Rashba makes a lot of sense in my mind. That the Rashba holds that the gates really doesn't help. If you had a seratio, when there's a rabbim, the gates wouldn't even help. It's only a road. What makes the road a Rishus HaRabim? Because it's accessible 24/7 for people to walk through it. So now that it's not accessible 24/7 for people to walk through it, so it's always Rishus HaRabim. But then you're like you said, that according to the Rashba, if it was really a seratio, that wouldn't even help, unless there was a makuda, or there were walls around it. Which again, that's okay. Your child is, I think, what's making the. Okay, so let's read a little piece from a Sikha. The Rebbe was talking about in Tov Shemem Hey about his campaign about.
What year is that?
85. About talking to the goyim about Sheva Mitzvah.
12 days before I was born.
So you're dating yourself.
Yeah.
So
That's not much fun.
the Rebbe, that's good. The 80s were a good time. So
Very good time.
So the Rebbe then said, Agav Urcha, because Lieberman was born then. The Rebbe said Agav Urcha a thing which is relevant to us today. But that's harbe gedoyle rishonim kol shein shishim liba over and boba chol yom ein rishus harab min atoyra. Vapidi vrem kol sva paiskim vum b'shachmar kol meretzak. The time alone shein lo achshuv rishus harabim gemure. Yove mishu bezmanenu be'ir shebevada yesh bo shishim libu over and boy kol yom. Will be a city that today there's bevada shishim libu. V'yitem achish and if shein lo achshuv rishus harabim gemure.
So that's the overall population, not a particular road.
He didn't go into this. The
The
Rebbe
way-
is just saying,
the way he
it sounds
says
that way,
sounds
right,
like it's the
right.
population.
right.
There are many cities in
Yeah, but
America
if-
that have at least
Right.
600,000, but only Brooklyn is known that we don't have an area because of, there's so many people. I mean, there are lots of cities
Right, so
overall
all those cities will be the
that-
same thing.
like Chicago or
Let's
LA,
read it.
they have
Harei ze
areas.
simen, yeshuv le'efsheri metzias shaliyah she'irish u'serabim gemurah. The person is going to say, Shulchan Aruch says, Ein afkemin eretz le'yeshuv ba'at Simon mispera oivrim be'ir, nimna al-yedei ha'mishtara she'be'iroi, v'nimtzo yoyse meshishem ribu, hu b'shaloi, she'i efsher lifsek neged din mefurish b'Shulchan Aruch. Muve me'atzmei hagichuch b'tayna kazu. The Rebbe never spoke in Hebrew. It's fancy Hebrew. The Rebbe said the gelechter probably. The Rebbe said it's a gelechter. Haim din zev.
He spoke beautiful Hebrew with
I know with you. Okay. Haim uchuka. Hashulchan Aruch medaber oida metzias bezman hashulchan aruch. Shad lo yeh metzias kazu she'yishim li b'ayvrim b'chol yom. In the days of the Beis Yosef, he wrote the ein lanu bezman hazer rishus harabim. Why? Because cities at that time, even cities like Paris, were not big cities. Cities were not big. They did not have in the times of the Beis Yosef cities that had shishim ribui. It was
I mean, Jonas
I guess
says
not.
that Nineveh
No.
had 100,000. So they
Yeah,
weren't.
Nineveh is different. You could talk to Rabbi Google. It's not a push to Shaila. There was a reason for it. The demographics and things were at that time. Think the
I
time
understand, but
of the Shulchan Aruch. Man shel Rabbi Yosef Cairo. It wasn't. לפיכך נפסק ההלכה שאין לחשוב שזה גמור, אבל כשנשתנה המצב, מאיזה סיבה שהיא, ויש היורש שעוברים בהם 60 ריבה בכל יום, יש להם דין רשוס הרבים גמורים מן התורה, בלי שום פקפוק בדבר. וכן בענייננו, מה מוקם להביא ראיה בעניין 7 מצוות בני נוח, מדוירס הקודם, כאשר פני הדברים נשתנו לגמרי. The Rebbe wanted to say the same thing. Person's going to say, my Zayda never spoke to his neighbors, the Goyim, about 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. So the Rebbe said, yeah, but if your Zayda did try to do it, he wouldn't come home alive. So it wasn't Shayach. So anyway, that was. But B'toich Advarim, you see that the Stam that the Rebbe used this as a davar poshu. That the fact that the Shulchan Aruch says bestoma ein lonu achshav bezman hazer rishus harabim gemura, the Shulchan Aruch meant bezman of the 15 and 1600s, that most of the cities in the world did not have a population of shishim ribui. But bezman hazer, that there's big cities that do have a population of 600,000, you have to be done. I don't think the Rebbe is passing here a din. If how many people need to be in the city, 3 million or 600,000, how many people to go, if there's a car, if there's not a car. The Rebbe is just saying that it's a gelechte to say, if you want to say that Shulchan Aruch said that there's no Rishus Harab, and all the Eidavin is really based on the notion that we don't have a real Rishus Harab, and you want to build an Eidav with that notion, it's a gelechte. It doesn't mean that you can't build an Eidav. You're just saying that to go and say the Shulchan Aruch says Ein Lon Rishus Harabim. Why? Because we're following Tosfos that we need to have 600,000 people. So to say that is a gelechte, that is a joke. It doesn't mean that every city is a Rishus Harabim. I'm just saying you have to look into it. Here is a little piece. I want to read it. The Rebbe wrote a note, and here is this something that was published a week ago by the librarian Chabad. The Rebbe wrote a note, and then they told him not to publish it. Not to publish it in the Kovetz Yagel Torah. The Rebbe told him not to publish it. Here's the words of the note. I really should have printed out. Maybe next week I'll. Lepamim kroivis meskalkel ho'erev. Veroim b'muchish shachroz al dvar zeh. B'yameinu magir rak lamiut, because people are not davening in one shul. Ma'atim hem shim numatzim al yedei zeh lach shehurgu lekam v'kam shabbosas to carry. V'lachim b'mokim she'einu shus harabim deiraisa u'matzim la'erev. Kedai lasas maimer azal bazeh to make an erev. B'tnai shelo lefarsim al dov zeh klal. There's a lot of this sentence is fully loaded. Like when you go into a deli thing, you want a sandwich fully loaded. These few words are fully loaded. In other words, the Rebbe is saying like this. He's saying a lot of things. He's saying to build an Eidif, if there's not a Rishus Harabim Deiraisa. In other words, in the Rebbe's mind, if there's a Rishus Harabim Deiraisa, there's a no starter. And in the Rebbe's mind, that this is a consideration, that you have to look at every city. Is this city a Rishus Harabim Deiraisa? And if the answer is yes, stop thinking about a native, because this place is a Rishus Harabim Deraisa, so go home, forget about it. If it's a Rishus Rabim Dirabonon, it's not a Rishus Rabim Diraisa, and it is Masim La'edu, which v'chulu the Rebbe writes. In other words, there's a lot of conditions to make it a candidate for Edu. The Rebbe thinks it's kedai to make an Edu and not to be Mefarsim.
And where do you?
And when I was in Co-op City, Itaka did that. One of the first things that people asked if we can make an Edu. I brought an unbelievable expert. I won't say his name. It's Oliver Shalom. So Mumcha Godel, he the Charles Trivers between him and the Chalkas Yaakov, and we came down to Koop City, and we came to the Maskana that the place is naturally a Rishus Hayochid Min HaTorah. There's no problem, and we did whatever it needs to make an Erev Chatzeris. Then the people asked me, Rabbi, do we have an Erev? So I said, yeah, in all the buildings there's an Erev, but you can't. So I can't ask. So my wife said, why don't you say that you're allowed to carry outside? So I said, simple. If I say you're allowed to carry outside, they'll start using the elevator and driving also. So I did exactly what's said in this tshuva. I made sure that there is an Erev, but I didn't be mefarsim, because when mefarsim it is, you could have takolos. And what's after I leave Co-op City? Right. And what's if a certain gate goes up or goes down? And things constantly change. And in people's mind, oh, there was a rabbi here, there were experts here, and there was a native, and no one knew about it. Okay, so now this is a very, very strong. So the Rebbe said to him that he should not publish it. So now you could ask, why did the Rebbe say not to publish it? So here you could be two shittas. As I said, I'm not going into today I'm not going into this entire sefer and refuting this entire sefer. Just someone said that Lubavitcher Rebbe endorses the Erev in Brooklyn, so I just want to make it clear what I think the Rebbe thinks about the Erev. So you could say, why did the Rebbe say not to be mefarsim? He changed his mind. I think it's a shvach pshat. The other pshat is like this: they're going to publish it. The Rebbe said you should make an Erev, but don't be mefarsim. Tell this to your wife. Think about it. Right. Tell your wife there's an Erev in Brooklyn. Just don't tell your neighbor. There's an Erev. The Rebbe said there's an Erev. Just don't tell Shandy across the street. Yeah. But there's an Erev. And it's a kosher Erev.
Her husband will tell Shandy.
Oh, so Lani is daiti. So Lani is daiti. There you go. So that's why the Rebbe said Loi lahatfis. You're going to publish this? Okay. Rabboni Chabad will want to know what's the Rebbe's opinion about this. When it comes Lamaisa, as much pilpulim as you make, you want to know what a Godel Ador says about this. So Rabboni Chabad will ask each other. They'll find out the Rebbe's opinion about this. You're going to publish it that the Rebbe said that I can't make an amol on native.
But he only said only if it's not the rice.
But again, they're not going to read that part. They're not going to read that part. They're just going to the sensational part. They're going to get. The Rebbe endorses a native. You see now, emails are going out. So when the Rebbe, so I want to go to this email that went out. He says that the Rebbe used to give him money to build Eidavin in different places in America. He didn't say which places. Right. He also didn't say if the Rebbe asked that it should be Mefursim or not Mefursim that is an Eidav. So that the fact that the Rebbe gave to a certain Rav, who is a Choshev Rav, and Baruch Hashem wrote Choshev Svarim, that he gave him money and encouraged him to go around America to build Eidavin. That doesn't mean number one, it doesn't mean that the Rebbe thinks that Brooklyn is worthy of an Eidav. And number two, it doesn't mean that he thought in those places it's a roy to be mefarsim it. So the fact so the Rebbe gave him money. What does that mean? What does that mean that the Rebbe
gave me also dollars?
I don't know.
The golden era.
You know, sometimes there were cities that you could be upshot like this. There's cities that they're going to have 8 of them. The shaila is who's going to build it. Ploini Almoini, which doesn't know how to read Oisis of Rashi, or this Rav that we're dealing with now, who L'chol Adeis is a Talmud Chochem Otzum Benifla, and he knows Aken Shas. So now the question, who's going to go build the 8 of there? So, and now they didn't ask the Rebbe should not build a Eidav. They're building an Eidav. And now the shaila is, should this Rav go around America, or should Pliny Almani, who doesn't know how to read Rashi Oisis? So the Rebbe encouraged him. I don't know that means that the Rebbe encouraged Eidavin.
Why is it Psak Bible? Maybe in his times in 1985.
I think even that it's even less. I think he gave him encouragement because there are places all over America that want to build eight of him. And the question is, who's going to build the eight of him? Is it going to build someone who doesn't know anything or someone that knows? And Rabbi Gabriel Tzinen is a moedike Talmud Chacham and a moedike Yerushalayim. Then it was happy that a big Yerushalayim should go around America building eight of them instead of an Oitzvorf who doesn't know anything. That's it. Simple. Yeah. Yeah.
The biggest right that I see the news is that Budapest was an Arab.
Right.
That was 10 million people.
Right.
So
So
they said
All the big cities in Europe.
but Budapest especially.
right. Varsha, Budapest, so okay. We'll have to Oid Chazon Lamoyed. I think we covered a little bit. So to summarize what we spoke about today,
So with what we said.
1 second.
Oh,
Summarize. That there is a concept of Rishus Harabim. There is a Tosfos that says that we don't have a Rishus Harabim. That Rishus Harabim means they have 600,000 people. There's a lot of shilas within that. 600,000 the city, 600,000 people walking on the road. How about if they're walking different parts of the road? Do they have to walk the whole part of the road? How about if they're in wagons? How about they're in trains? And then there is the statement in the Shulchan Aruch, Ein lonu b'zman hazeh rishus harabim, relying on Tosfos. And then there is the question: is it true that b'zman hazeh ein lonu rishus harabim? Obviously, the Rebbe thinks that that's a joke to say that the Shulchan Aruch says ein lonu rishus harabim, that we don't have rishus harabim. And therefore, it impacts the Eidiv that we're talking about today in Brooklyn. And that's it. And Oid Chazon Lamoyed. I want to say quickly, I always have 3 shilas for today. A very important thing to bring to your attention. There are people that have a Sarogim from Eretz Yisrael. So you have to know that the Sarogim from last year, I also got a few sets because it's on the cheap and I want to go out with for a nursing home here and there from Tzayim, and so I got a few sets of these. So it's very important to know that they're Shemitah. It's la'ochla v'loy hefsed. You're not allowed to throw them out. You have to keep them, and they have to decompose on their own. So you can't throw them out. And maybe next week or in 2 weeks, there's a Geshmak Chaznish about this, but the time is short, and we'll talk about it then. And one more shaila. That's the shaila I wanted to talk about. You're gonna have to wait. I'm sorry, because
don't
time
make the
short.
jump
One
yet.
more
Don't
shaila.
yell yet.
One more shaila, because we like to cover 3 shailas. There was a New York Times article. This is my wife gives it to me to read. I didn't have to read it. She told me because it's very, very cute. We used to go with our children to the Bronx Zoo a lot. The Bronx Zoo was literally in our backyard. Efrat at that time, whatever, my wife was, whatever. I used to take care of the kids a lot, and I used to take little Mindy, and Chaimushkala, and there was a favorite thing. I used to go with them all the time. We had membership, and there was even a spot I could get some at Sefer, and they used to run around a little bit. And there was a machaya. It was machaya. And the Bronx Zoo then was a real zoo, not like now where they're also so worried. So there was 3 elephants, Happy, Tuss, and the third one. And there was a circle, and whatever. No one here is that familiar with the parks. Not in the gate. There's in the edge after Asia. There was a circle. The 3 elephants, and you pay an extra. Well, it was not a lot of money. And it was a favorite thing for Mindy to go with me on the elephant. And and one of the 3 was Happy the elephant. I'm happy to hear that he's still alive. Happy the elephant. And Mindy was a favorite thing. I used to go on, I used to pay a few dollars and go a little circle. And that ride is not around anymore because that's cruelty for animals. The elephants were moved to Asia. So anyone that knows the Bronx Zoo, I don't go with the kids, even if I drive by now the Bronx, I'm not going to Bronx Zoo because I have binoculars to find the elephants or these majestic animals that used to be in cages or in small enclosed areas, and now it's you can't find them. You come with the kids, with the elephant, state the sign that there's an elephant. You have to trust them that here's the elephant. Okay, so now there was a court case. I kid you not. This is an article that was just published in the New York Times.
Then it's not true.
It was a real court case. I don't know what's true or not true. I'm just telling you it's published. There was a court case that came to the highest court, that the highest court in New York State. There was and there was 2 that gesagt azoi and 5 judges gesagt azoi. What was the shaila? The shaila was that even though they stopped the ride, and even they put it in age, and even though, and it's being treated so nicely, nope, that there is a group that took the Bronx Zoo to court to say that human beings have rights, and the rights stem from a legal thing called habeas corpus. So you can't put a person in a dungeon and lock the door because you're violating his right, and this is the name of habeas corpus. So Azoy. So they said that happy the elephant. Yeah. So the elephant is now confined. Now they said like this. What's the Indian of habeas corpus is because the human being is intelligent, and Happy the elephant has been proven to be very intelligent. They did a few tests on Happy, and it turns out that he's elephants attack very intelligent, a very high IQ, very high IQ.
They say the elephant never forgets.
Right.
Hashem were people that Hashem made them into elephants. It says in the Sefer, so that
Right,
monkeys
monkey. These three monkeys, elephants, and that. So they say, Yois, he's intelligent, so he should have the rights of personhood. And B'meila, Agamara, that the Stephen Weiss, the head of the conservatory, that it's going against the Bronx Zoo, saying that the Bronx Zoo is now in violation of habeas corpus of Happy the elephant, and therefore it should be transferred into some sanctuaries back in Africa where it could live happily ever after. The court,
Get torn up by a
the,
lion.
this was a real court case in June this year. The highest court in New York State. Gewinnt a Purim-Spiel. It's nicht gewähnt in Williamsburg a Purim-Spiel or den Border Park. This was in the highest court in New York. Lawyers are being paid millions of dollars to fight this narishkeit out, to say that this guy has personhood. And luckily for us, that five judges went out on the side of reason, and the other side said, but wait a minute, corporations have rights. Corporations are not and they're protected. They're not. You can't sue the person personally. So how come a corporation has personhood, certain rights of a personhood, and Happy the elephant not?
because they applied for it, but they give it.
The judges needed to answer these narishatinas. They said, well, the corporation are representing real people, but Happy the elephant is not. Gedacht them from the tainas. So my question was, what would the Torah say about this? I think it's very clear in this week's parsha that the Torah says, "Merachem v'chitchem yi al pnei." Could you finish the pasuk? Al pnei kol chayes, no? Al pnei kol haaretz. So the pasuk says here. Al kol chayes haaretz. Merachem v'chitchem yi al kol chayes haaretz. And there's a lot of Maimonides Chazal about this, but the beautiful is a Maimonides Chazal that says there's a Zoya. The Zoya says, "V'chitchem yi al kol chayes haaretz," that says that basically, Chazal say that even a baby you have to mishama from chayes or malach habashem meis, you have to be, but that when an animal sees that is the Eibush, the yukna the Adam is complete, so the animals are scared of the person. I told the story here many years ago, so I could tell the story again. There is a Choshev Talmid Chochem, he's a yeshiva here at Derech HaTorah, and he gave, I got from him a sefer that he prigged Rabbi Marx. So his father, Nebuch Tuchilet, a lot of difficulty in the Shoya, and he has in the back of the sefer memoirs that he published from his father. So his father writes an unbelievable thing, that Rahman al-Islam, the Germans had dogs that were trained to bite and sedais, and there was makubal by a lot of Yidden, that there were certain tzaddikim that if they had their image of that tzaddik in their mind, that they were bodik manusa, that they were never nizik from these dogs. That's what he writes. So
Which,
I think he writes over there about his Rebbe, the Getter Rebbe, the Imre Yemes. They had him in mind, and they were saved from the dogs.
Oh.
I'm just matter of fact. He says everyone in the camps knew it. Bada Kemunus. That's what he writes in his memoirs. So the question is, why is that? Like, what's the difference of the mouse and the elephant? Intelligence. So in other words, in these people, it's an unbelievable. The rights that a human being has is his intelligence. You see the danger here. So what happens if we figure out that there's a human being's intelligent? One person that we tested him, Happy the elephant and the mouse. The elephant got A, and the mouse got B, and this guy got C.
That's why there's euthanasia.
Don't have to finish, right? To finish the sentence, huh?
The
Exactly. We trade. Exactly. We'll trade Happy the elephant and him. So, but the answer really is to every person that has a healthy mind is that there's a boida olam manhigo. That the Eivishter said the fact that a person has dominion over animals is not because we have intelligence and they don't. Because the Rebbeinu Shalom said to Noach, because the Rebbeinu Shalom gave this right to Noach, has nothing to do with intelligence or not intelligence. Because the Eibusha said, "Umoyrachem v'chitchem yiyeh al kol chayes ha'oretz v'kol oif ha'shamayim u'bechol asher tirmas adama v'kol degei hayom b'yetchem nitonu." Because of this pasuk in the Torah, which applies also to Bnei Noach, that's why we have dominion over animals. That's a very simple thing, and that's very simple.
We have
That's a separate thing. That's a Zohar, but that's pshat. That's pshat, huh? No, Tsar Balachim is a different thing. But the Tsar Balachim here is less than the case because the Bronx Zoo is claiming, and it's true, that Happy is very happy right now. No one's riding on his back anymore. He's not confined in a very small place. He has a very large place.
Confined the phone.
How much tzad? It's very to that. So we need another share for that to define what's the definition. The definition of tzar balechayim.
Cover. They do this for monetary purposes. They
Right.
don't care about the animals.
Right. But no, they don't.
They're making money, they bring to
Right.
They pretend it's like the
Right.
animals don't want to be there.
Right. So the tzar balechayim thing we have to deal separately.
Go visit Happy.
But personhood, in the stuck in personhood.
Next
And
Sunday,
that's
we
why,
get
because it's straight in Denvot's parsha.
Also, it would be
Right.
Before we bench, it's good to be Persuma Denisa. Rabbi Gens has 15 years ago big nest, and 2 words maybe just let us know.
Went to Cleveland, I was clearing, I was shouted to clear. When I was born, it was something that I had from birth control. So when I was born, it said, what's trapped? They actually said that there's going to come a time you're going to go to a doctor who's going to go send you to a cardiologist, who's going to send you to Cleveland, and then over there they're going to give you.
Vade Gomer, yes.
That's
Vade Gomer, that's a pshat.
I didn't have the years, but because of davening, I davened that it was myself. Is that the sound?
No, the first pshat looks good.
First was better.
You're here with us today.
So my daughter.
Main thing is you're here today. However you slice it.
So that's yeah. Okay, so that's what it was. Baruch Hashem, I went to Yoshkamp, and you probably know him.
on the East 14th.
Yeah. Very, everybody used him.
Hey,
Very fine. He checked my heart. He said, well, you better go. He sent me to his cardiologist. Anybody needs flowers. Very functional cardiologist who looked up on the internet, went on his own and checked and checked around to see what's available. This procedure is at the closest place was in Cleveland. Cleveland Clinic is known to be number 1 for cardiac in America. So the rest is history. 13 years ago.
Bezrat Hashem, many years. And he said the story to the Mashiach. Okay. Whoever, how many watch?
How many people watch?
4, 5.
You sent me again.
Huh?
25. Come on.
Yeah, we have reasons.
Come on.
That's for sure, but I don't see that.
Answer, please.
Flies.
Hey, Shem.
Question is, clean. They took what Moshe taught and they did a lot of steps. You gave a heter in Queens, like little to be like hard to got built. Today it's a lot bigger than what you. So again, it's it's taking a heter.
I'm going to be mine a little more in the Brooklyn. Yeah, a little bit.
Really cool that we have, but thank you very much. For them to give the kind of thing, so we'll give the official on the Shabbat. Yeah, well.
With the guy who said she's wife, don't tell your neighbor and friend that, married. So she used to be Arab. Mary says to you, what are you doing?
That's what I said. That's why I don't think that everyone wanted to publicize. But they have an opinion.
Use it. Why build it? Use it.
Oh, I build it because there's saving people from being over a Yisur, they're Isa. Because there are people that are not religious, Jews, in Jewish cities that are carrying.
They don't even know, they don't know the law of that. But if someone doesn't.
Yeah.
Saving people, but in good space to do such a thing without having any. Are these possible?
Yeah, if they made
Everybody goes on the
you could ask parents how you can watch it online.